Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear students. Welcome back once again on another episode of our career-wise chat. And in this, we give you information about the opportunities to study abroad. And today we are discussing education in the U.S. So, like last time, we have the host. The host is Mr. Wahaj Hussain, and we have a guest, a very special guest who is joining us today from Chicago, USA. So, first, let me introduce the host to you, and then I'm going to introduce. So, our host is Mr. Wahaj Hussain. Mr. Wahaj Hussain is among those institutional leaders who have left an indelible mark on Pakistan's educational landscape. He has been a teacher, mentor, counselor, entrepreneur, and an icon of transformational leadership for the last 25 years. Indeed, it is not possible to do justice to his many achievements in a short span of time. Suffice it to say that Mr. Wahaj Hussain holds 7 professional certifications and has been training at University of Cambridge conferences around the world since 2015. He is therefore the most up-to-date individual on Cambridge curricula, pedagogy, and methodology. Mr. Wahaj Hussain has made CSR a cornerstone of institutional activities. Recently, he has launched the Wahaj Hussain Scholars Program, under which high achieving, aspiring students will be supported financially to apply to international colleges. Additionally, 95% of the 800 plus students studying at Wales College receive some form of merit or need based financial support from Mr. Wahaj Hussain. Welcome, Sir Wahaj Hussain, to the program.
Thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate it.
I would now like to introduce our very special guest, Dr. Cris Toffolo. Dr. Cris Toffolo has a PhD in political science, and interestingly, the subject of her thesis was Pakistan. She is professor of justice studies and has served as the chair of Justice Studies Department for 10 years. She then branched into international programs. For the past 7 years, she has been the director in the Office of International Programs of Northeastern Illinois University, NEIU. NEIU is a public university which has over 9,000 students. It offers undergrad majors in fields like computer sciences, cybersecurity, education, economics, management, urban and gender studies, and more. Welcome, Dr. Toffolo.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Assalamu alaikum.
So now I'm going to request Mr. Wahaj Hussain to put questions to Dr. Toffolo and start the discussion.
Uh, Hello, Dr. Toffolo. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're doing good. Thank you very much, Mr. Nadeem, for having this podcast. I mean, it's really good for the students, especially because we are engaging some of the top educationists around the world in the last episode as well, and this time too, mashallah. So good to have you both here. Dr. Toffolo, I'm really grateful to you for taking out your precious time and talking about education in US especially, and talking about the education in general, because US has been the leading destination for the students worldwide, and it's really doing a good job, especially in the last 100 years, so to say. And when I was going to the QS ranking, that out of 100 top universities, 50 universities are from US, so it's incredible. So and you have been a part of it throughout this whole journey. So before I take off, I just want to know more about your research papers, because Sir Nadeem just mentioned that your thesis was partly on Pakistan as well. So I just want you to shed some light on it, please.
Sure. Thank you for that. I'm really honored to be here, and hello to all the students. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. So my doctoral thesis was on Pakistan. It was looking at the diversity of Pakistani society, ethnically and linguistically, and trying to analyze how politics can thrive in such an environment. So it was both a theoretical dissertation, but Pakistan was centered as the case study. And then I've also done a lot of work on women's leadership because Pakistan, of course, Benazir Bhutto was an iconic figure. I've also worked for Amnesty International for 20 years as the Pakistan country specialist. And in that time really was looking at human rights and how to improve human rights for individuals, but also thinking about it society-wide as well.
What you have noticed about Pakistan, like, I mean, during Benazir Bhutto and I mean, especially in today's socioeconomic situations, and you might be following some of the activities in Pakistan educationally and in social front as well. What is your opinion that how far we are doing, especially in terms of education? What is your opinion on that?
So Pakistan has trained world top leaders in every field. We see them in the finance field, we see them in physics, we see them all over the place. So I think there's a really solid foundation. My daughter herself went up through secondary school in Pakistan, so I know the system intimately. And I think what that solid foundation provides, especially when it's linked with kind of a US approach to education, is really kind of amazing, because Pakistan really provides that solid knowledge. There's a premium on memorization and really understanding concepts at a very basic level. And when a student gets through a high school education like that and comes to the US, we tend to be more focused on kind of critical thinking and giving students an opportunity to express themselves and to think through an idea for themselves. But if you have the strong foundation and then can build on this kind of a little bit more flexible approach to education, I think it's a perfect marriage, really. And Pakistani students really thrive in the United States and do exceedingly well, because sometimes they have a stronger foundation in those fundamentals than some American students. So they compete very well.
But actually, in Pakistan, as you know, that in Pakistan, we as a society, we focus a lot on education. I mean, a lot of people who even belong to the middle class, they just try to churn out some funds for education. Education has been our priority as a family, you know. On, of course, on governmental sides, you know, as a government policy, education policy, that can be questioned many a times. But I know on an individual family level, you know, we give a lot of emphasis on education, and even the girls' education as well. I mean, equal importance are in the last 2 decades, especially equal importance is being given to, you know, boys and girls, especially. And with the help of some international boards in Pakistan, as you know, that there are a lot of international boards are working in Pakistan, especially Cambridge, Pearson, and Excel, and so many other boards. And they're working a lot with the help of British Council Pakistan. They are connecting different schools, and they're providing proper training for the teachers, you know, and a lot of schools are coming on board, and they are getting, you know, international curriculum. So that's the best part. And a lot of students who pass through all these, you know, processes, you know, they end up becoming a great individual. So, but this particular, you know, facilities is restricted to, you know, the a few schools only, unfortunately, and it's not, there's no trickle down effect to the, you know, most challenging part of society. And of course, government has a great role to play here. So, but you know, the lot of discussion, a lot of debates are here how to improve our education system. But still, you know, especially at for higher education, America, US itself has provided great opportunity for our graduates, you know, or undergrad students. So we really appreciate that. So coming to our questions, so we have a certain question for you so that we can enlighten us. So in your opinion, just a question for you, in your opinion, what sets US higher education apart from higher education in other countries? What sets it apart? What is your opinion?
Thank you for that. And before I get to that question, I'll tell you that our leading international student right now on campus is actually a Pakistani woman. We don't have a lot of scholarships, but she got our full ride scholarship for her MBA program. So we're very proud of her, and I work very closely with her. So those opportunities are there. As I kind of mentioned before, U.S. education, there's freedom here in terms of, especially if somebody's coming at the undergraduate level. About a third of the curriculum is a general education curriculum, so you're a well-rounded person. A third of the curriculum is really job training. It's the focus on your major, so you have a deep understanding of the major. But then a third is really electives, which means that if you choose the wrong major at the beginning and you want to change, you still have time without costing extra money and time. So there's that kind of freedom, or you can double major, those kinds of things. And in the classroom itself, we don't so much lecture at students. There is some lectures for fundamental concepts, but teachers will often, do group discussions, have opportunities for the students to help to influence what is actually being talked about in the classroom. So they'll say, okay, here's a fundamental concept, but here's how it applies in my life, or here's the questions I have because of my experience. So it helps the students to really ask questions that are relevant for their own life. And we know that if that's the case, they're going to remember that material better. And then there's also there's two things. One is there is homework at the university level that would be different, say in Europe, where there's one huge exam at the end. You study or don't study throughout the year. It's up to you. And then you either pass or fail. Here, it's a lot of repetition, because we know that what you hear, you only remember about 5% of it. But what you do, you remember much, much, much more. So we have students practice again and again and again on concepts. So they're really grounded in those concepts. And at the same time, often courses will require you to do some research. So you can pick the topic or how you want to learn that material and specialize in a particular thing. So that kind of freedom and that opportunity to practice again until you get it right, I think really grounds you in a solid education, which serves you well. And if you have a solid foundation, you're going to have confidence. And if you have confidence, you can take initiative. And if you can take initiative, you're going to be successful. So we try to really think about education in that way.
To say that in America, there is a college for every aspiring student. One just has to do one's research properly.
Yes, that is really true, because we have over 5,000 universities in the United States. We're a big country, and most of them, I would say 80% of them, are going to give you a good education. We have the community college system, which gives you 2 years, and that's more vocational training, but not only vocational training. It also can be the preparatory education for a bachelor's degree. It's often a good choice for students who are a little bit strapped for funds to start at a community college, do 2 years, then on their visa, they could work for a year, and then transfer to a full university and do the last 2 years and complete their bachelor's degree. And their bachelor's degree would just simply say they came to the university. So this is one opportunity for students with a little bit more resources. They should go straight to the university, and we have both public and private. Typically, private universities are going to be much more expensive. Public universities draw some on the taxpayer dollars, so there's fewer scholarships, but the overall cost would be much lower. And then you have to think about, there are urban universities like mine, and then there's more rural universities. So you want to think about what kind of environment you want to be involved in. Do you want to be in a big city, or do you want to be in a small town, which is more kind of insulated, that kind of thing. And then the size of the university. Like my university is a smaller regional university with small classes, like 20 students on average per class. And we have an 11-to-1 student to faculty ratio. That's very different than, say, the University of Illinois at Chicago, which is also here in Chicago, but there's 40,000 students there. And the classes maybe, especially in your first year, might be 100 students sitting in a lecture hall. So, you have to decide, what do you want? I mean, at a large university, you can get exposure to like very, very famous academics. That's really good often for the graduate level. For the undergraduate level, sometimes the more intimate environment can help you learn better. So you really have to choose that kind of what is it that's going to fit you? Like, what is the best fit for you? Because if you choose the right university carefully, if you have the right fit, you're going to be happy. If you're happy, you're not going to be anxious. You're going to be able to focus on your studies. And from there, you're going to be successful.
From Dr. Toffolo, on job perspective, I mean, especially a lot of people after studying, they look for jobs later on. So as compared to undergrad program, how do you see the community college program, 2 years program? Like, people generally get jobs after that, or they have to struggle?
It really depends on the field that you're in. You can't say one size fits all. And it also depends on the unemployment rate at the time you're graduating. So right now we have historically low unemployment in the United States, which makes it good for new graduates because there's a need for many, many workers. The 2-year degree is going to get you could probably get a job. You're not going to be considered a full college graduate at that point. So it is important to go on for the bachelor's level. So with each level, the associate's degree you get at a community college, you'll get one salary. At a bachelor's degree level, you'll get a higher salary. If you go on for the master's, you'll get an even higher salary. But it really depends on the field. And then if you know STEM fields, you can one time, either at the bachelor's level or at the master's level, apply for an extension of your work permit so you could work for 3 years. So we often see, you can't do that at the associate's level. You could work for 1 year if you wanted to save a little bit of money to then apply to go to the bachelor's level. But if you want to end at the bachelor's level and you're in a STEM field, you can do something called OPT, optional practical training. And in the STEM field, that's for 1 year. You can extend that for 2 more years. So you could work for 3 years.
Completes his community college for 2 years and is looking forward for undergrad program. Like, every community college has university, I mean, credit transfer, or like you have to select a particular community college if they look for further undergrad top up. What is your view on that?
Which get most of the international students: California, New York, Florida and Texas, and Illinois. In some of these systems, say California and Illinois, for example, and I know less about the other systems, the state has mandated that there's an integration between the community colleges in that state and the universities. And ironically, both California and Illinois have very, very similar general education requirements. So transferring between these two states is also quite possible. Here in Illinois, here in Chicago, we have something called the City Colleges of Chicago, which are a whole bunch of community colleges. And then we have a couple in the outlying suburbs, such as Oakton and some further out. All of those, we have done something called articulation agreements, meaning our school has looked at the syllabi of the classes at the community colleges, and they've looked at our syllabi, and the faculty have come together to say, yeah, if you take Biology 101 at that community college, it's the same as taking Biology 101 here. So we give you full credit for that. So you want to look for systems that have universities and community colleges that are linked together and have done articulation agreements. So in our system, it's very seamless. Boom, you go to one of the city colleges, or you go to one of the community colleges in our region, you're going to get full credit. You're going to get 60 to 64 credits toward your bachelor's degree, and you need 120 credits to graduate. So you're halfway there, and you won't lose any credit. But that's a very important question, to look at how those are linked. The other thing I'll say about the 5 leading states for international students, right now, Chicago's a little bit cheaper than we're a lot cheaper than California. We're a little bit cheaper than New York. Other popular destinations are Florida and Texas. Right now, our political climate is kind of turbulent. And some states are more welcoming of immigrants than others. Currently, right now, the states of Florida and Texas are less welcoming. Illinois is a very welcoming state. So that's something else to look at the regions. You're going to have warmer, better weather in Florida or Texas, minus a hurricane or two, where you'll have colder weather here in Chicago, but the climate shouldn't just be the weather. The climate should be the social climate as well, as you're thinking about that.
You have already mentioned about the public sector and private sector universities. I mean, when you talk about the cost of education and the quality of education, how do you rate these both in US?
Well, we have universities. One way to measure a university is social mobility, which means a graduate from a university is going to make such a salary. Their parents probably made a lower salary. So the difference between the lifetime earnings of the parent and the lifetime earning of the graduate is called the social mobility scale. And our university has one of the highest jumps in that, which means there's good value for money. So yes, a college, you have to think of any kind of a loan or any kind of an investment. You have to look at the return on the investment, the ROI, right? I mean, if you make an investment and you don't make any money on it in the end of the day, it's not a very good investment, right? So you have to look at the return on investment. And one of the questions you want to ask is, what is the earning potential of graduates of your school compared to what their parents were able to earn? And one of the other things is to look at the graduation rate. Now, at NEIU, our graduation rate for domestic students is low officially because the way statistics are collected, they're collected after 6 years. Our graduation rate for international students is 90%. They finish within 6 years, and partly because they're required to go full-time by US law, whereas domestic students can work and go to school. They can be part-time students, and sometimes they're part-time students for more than 6 years, maybe 7 or 8 years, because they don't want to take on debt. So that's one of the things you have to think about is like, do you want to, if for an international student, you really have to finish in the allotted amount of time. That's US law. For domestic students, they have more flexibility. So the most important thing is to really think about the career you want to go into. You want to do something that you're passionate about, but also something in which there are jobs. Now, something else to pay attention to is the world is changing. And the European Union recently put out a list of green jobs, the jobs of the future that we're going to have to invest in. So my son graduated from NEIU. He has a degree in physics and computer science. He's working at Fermilab, which is the leading physics lab in the United States. But I sent him this list the other day. And one of the things that was on it was to become somebody who can do energy audits. I don't even know what that is, right? So I had to do a little bit of research. Well, an energy audit is somebody who can go into a company or into, if somebody's building homes, and say, okay, how much energy is this built environment going to take? And where's the sources of those energy? And is it going to be green energy? So thinking about these kind of new kind of jobs, which we're going to have to do as we move toward carbon neutrality, which we have to do to save our planet. These are some of the things to kind of pay attention to. Think about the jobs of the future, not just the jobs maybe your parents have talked to you about or your friends have talked about. Do that little bit of research and say, where are the jobs of the future happening? And that will serve you really well.
One of my students from Canada actually visited Pakistan, and I talked to him, and I just asked what does he do there. So he just told me that I'm actually a town planner. Whenever a new population comes in Canada, the government gives us a task to do the feasibility report that for 5,000 population or 10,000 population, what is the drainage system, what's the all the due diligence and nitty-gritty is being discussed, and they plan ahead, like for 5 years they plan ahead, and then they present this whole project to the government, and accordingly the government plans for further action. So it's a real it was very, very interesting for me to know that they plan quite ahead of time. generally in our part of the world, that research is totally missing. So it's really good. I mean, that before the population comes up, they get to know all the amenities which especially the uh, in the global climate problem is there. So many analysis should be done beforehand. So that's the thing which you told me, that some new jobs are coming for, or design the undergrad program so that the student can opt for. For that, proper counseling is needed upfront. And unfortunately, due to lack of counseling, especially before university option, a lot of students get trapped into the wrong programs, and that's why they miss out some of the first year, or maybe they switch to other programs. They keep on so what do you suggest, like what the student should do at the end of their high school, or we call it A-levels years? So what do you suggest? What option they should look for? What research they should do in order to select the right program for their undergrad program?
Thank you for that question. So, you're in kind of the driver's seat when you're choosing universities. It's kind of complex. There's so many out there. But, your school is doing, I think, already a great service by having these kind of webinars for you to introduce you to certain schools. So take advantage of that. There's also something called Education USA offices in Pakistan. Those are local people, Pakistanis, who know the Pakistani system very well, but they also know the US system very well. And they're really committed to thinking about this concept of right fit. So they're asking you to think about who you are and the things that you like and the things you don't like, and then looking at universities that fit with the things that are important to you. I would say you're going to want to talk. I'm on WhatsApp 24/7. I'm always talking to students, right? So I'm talking to them and I'm trying to give them honest information, because if I bring the wrong student to my university, they're not happy. They don't do well. It doesn't reflect well on us, and it doesn't reflect well on the students. So you want to find schools where people are willing to talk to you and listen to you and answer your questions honestly. And then when you arrive at a university, in the US, we pride ourselves on advising. It's crucial. So, talk with your first year advisor. And then when you've decided on maybe a major, you then go and talk to your major advisor. One of the other things that is a responsibility of every single faculty member is to have office hours. They have to have 3 hours a week sitting in their office, or online in some cases, where they can do nothing except be available to students. Oftentimes we sit there as faculty twiddling our thumbs, nobody comes. But this is an amazing resource for students. You can just go in and say, hi, I kind of liked your lecture this week, but I didn't understand this point. That starts a conversation. And then you build those relationships with the faculty, and you can start asking, well, I had a student in here from Vietnam the other day. He's not doing particularly well. So I called him into my office. I said, hey, come on, what's going on with you? And he said, well, I'm in computer science. It's very difficult for me. I said, okay. I said, is this the major you're enjoying? He said, I'm not enjoying. I said, well, why are you in this major? He said, well, my parents sent me to the United States. They want me to have a career to make money. I said, okay, fair enough. They're paying a lot of money. But what would you want to do in your heart of hearts if you could do anything? He said, I really want to be a chef and be a great cook. I said, okay, we don't have cooking classes at a university, but why don't you take business classes? Learn how to run a restaurant. So even if you decide to be the chef, you'll at least know the business end of it. And then you can go back successfully to your home country. You can set up a really fine restaurant, and you can make the money that your parents want, so that because they've invested in your education. So think of different ways to achieve both your family's goals for you and your goals for yourself. My husband, who is Pakistani, always says, you can catch your nose this way, or you can catch your nose this way. Sometimes it's more difficult to do it this way, but sometimes that's the best way for you in the long run.
Discussion in US, a very common term which is used there, which I want you to shed some light on, that is liberal arts education. So would you please elaborate it?
So a liberal arts education is a term that is used to refer to the fact that about a third of the American college curriculum is you have to take things outside of your major. So in other countries, sometimes you say, I want to be in computer science, I want to be in business, and all your classes are just in that subject. In the United States, a liberal arts education signifies that we want you to take some classes in some fields maybe that you're not so familiar with or comfortable with. So a couple of art classes, a couple of social science classes, a couple of natural science courses. And that we feel makes you a more rounded individual. If you're going into the business field, it makes you more worldly. You can discuss things with people who have different interests, makes you more enjoyable to talk to. But it also maybe means that you'll find out you thought you were going for computer science, but it turns out you loved your finance class or you loved your art class. And then all of a sudden you're able to kind of pivot early enough on in your career that you can go into the field that really speaks to your heart. I'm a case in point. I started out in biology. I was going to go into medicine. And then I started doing some things that realized I don't really like this so much. I went into political science. And this was, it has made me so happy in my life. And then later in life, I went into justice studies and peace studies. But it was the ability to pivot because I was able to take some political science classes in undergraduate. I didn't even know I liked that thing. But so I finished my biology degree, and then I went on to do a master's in public policy and a PhD in political theory. So we know your brain is not yet fully formed until you're about age 25. Your brain is rewiring from being a child to being a grown-up. And on top of that, we see students change their majors up to 7 times. They start on something, they don't like it, they start on something else, and finally they settle into what is really the best path for them, given their unique talents, their unique interests, their unique passions, and where they want to put their energy for the life. And that's how you have a happy life as well as a successful career.
From IBA, a very famous institute in Pakistan, Institute of Business Administration. Actually, I was supposed to elect my own majors. So I was more into marketing. I just wanted to have all the marketing electives. But, there was some clash with my own personal tuition I was running an institute at that time. So I couldn't get the marketing elective. So I had to move for finance, which I always hated. I always hated finance. But somehow I landed up in finance, and trust me, I loved it. Initially I had some abhorrence, but later on I started loving that whole course. I did security analysis. I did analysis of financial statements, and that weaker part of mine became my stronger point, which I never thought. I always assumed that I'm very bad at finance. So trust me, sometimes all these surprises, unknown territories are explored, and we get to know our real strength. So you have really gave a very good example. So it just reminded me my own. Thank you very much. So then coming back to your own university, that is Northeastern Illinois. So is Northeastern Illinois University is oriented towards liberal arts or STEM education? And how many departments do you have? And what percentage of your students come from abroad?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. So we have very strong STEM programs. We also have strong art programs. We really have, we're a regional university and we have strengths in all those areas. The fact that we have a general education curriculum that's about a third of your total number of courses, I would say qualifies us to be kind of liberal arts. We're going to give you that foundation and all those things. But then a third you specialize, and a third you have the freedom to do what you want. You can deepen in your specialization area, or you can double major, or you can change majors and those kinds of things. So that, I think, really provides that really strong foundation. I forgot the second part of your question. Sorry. Okay.
Hello. Mr. Nadeem?
So can you repeat the question, please?
Let me ask the question again. Uh, as you know that your own university is oriented towards liberal arts or STEM education. So what orientation does university have? Is it like liberal arts or STEM education? And how many departments do you have? And how many students generally come from from foreign universities or foreign countries which join your university? Can you hear me, Doctor? I'm audible to you?
Okay. Thank you. I forgot about the second part of the question. So we have over 77 different programs at the bachelor's and graduate level. I tend to see international students doing about 15 of those are the top favorite ones. So I would say accounting, general business, and then at the graduate level, MBA, computer science, all different specializations inside of computer science, cybersecurity. We also see communications is very popular as a major. Biology, pre-med is another one. Chemistry, we have a really interesting chemistry program. We have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in graphic design, which is also a little bit unique. We have a very strong environmental studies and environmental science programs. We have a great psychology program, and at the master's level, wonderful counseling programs. We also have community health, public health, and exercise science. So I would say of all the international students that I see, they tend to go into these, probably most into computer science and business, but some of these other areas are coming up as well. In terms of the number of international students we have about 200 international students studying with us right now. The majority of them are from South Asia, but we're a Hispanic serving institution, so we do have some Latinos. We do have some people from the Middle East. We have some people from Vietnam, Mongolia, and elsewhere. And we have our office, my office, and my staff serve the 200 international students. We have an international club for those students. We also have a buddy program. So we team you up with an American student when you get here so they can teach you where to shop and all the tricks on how to get around on the transportation system and those kinds of things. So I think it's a very friendly environment. It's not like some universities where, there's 1,000 Pakistani students and you end up hanging out with all the Pakistanis and nobody else. Here, that's not going to happen. There's 200 international students from all over. Many of them live on campus and they live on the international floor. So on that international floor, you're going to meet some Koreans, or you might meet some Mexicans, or you might meet some US students on that floor as well. So you're going to be with other international students, but it's not going to be all Pakistanis, right? And then the other thing to know, especially in our College of Business and Technology, one of our 3 colleges, most of the faculty are international. They've been international students. So they'll feel your pain, right? They're going to know your situation. The chair of our computer science department is from China, right? The head of the accounting program is from the Middle East. When I think about some of our other colleges, we have faculty from all over the world who are in leadership positions across the campus. So, you're not going to be in an environment that doesn't understand you here at an EIU. So that's what I can say about that. The other thing I'll say is that we're 2 miles away from Devon Avenue. If you know anything about Chicago, maybe you have a relative here. Devon Avenue is the heart of the South Asian community. So you walk down there, even the way people drive on Devon Avenue, it's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit more like Pakistan or some of the bigger cities, right? You can hear your language. You can hear Urdu spoken. You'll hear Punjabi spoken, Sindhi spoken. There are restaurants up and down the street. And I even joke with the students, if you fall in love, you can get your wedding jewelry and your wedding saris and everything else right here on Devon Avenue. So if you're ever feeling homesick, it's right down the road, which I think makes it very nice. So there's a strong Pakistani community here, strong South Asian communities. There's halal meat shops, halal restaurants. There's mosques. There's really everything for when you really need that touch of home. It's right here.
The best part of USA, which I have noticed, that wherever you go, you always find halal food. You always find Pakistani restaurants, and even prayer, community, like masjid, mosque, everywhere, recently, I was in Everett in USA. Everett is where Boeing Boeing factory. So I was on a visit to that factory, Boeing. So even a smaller, that's a small city in near Seattle. So I mean, I found masjid close by, and I found even Pakistani restaurants, Indian restaurants, very common there. So you're always at home. In USA wherever you go. So that's my experience. So talking about your own university, what's generally is there any SAT score requirement there? Like, is it mandatory, or what other requirement for admissions, especially for undergrad program?
So as a public university, so when the US started as a country, we decided we wanted to have an educated citizenry. So the state invested a lot in education. So many states have extensive public university systems, like we do. And so our mission is access, because we want citizens to be broadly educated. That's a different mission than, say, a school like MIT or Harvard, which is going to take the top 1% of 1% students, right? Our philosophy is different than that. We feel that if you've maintained a basic GPA in high school of a 2.5 or above, you are ready for college. Below that, you might need some more preparation. But if you make that minimum requirement, you're welcome here. So we do not require an SAT or an ACT score. And we don't even require a personal essay from the undergraduates. We do at the master's level. So really, you just need to show proof of English language, and you need to show your GPA. And we will take your high school official transcript, and we will evaluate it for free, which can save you a couple $100. It's free to apply. So it's really an easy application process. And that's the point. We want to make access mean something. So you don't really pay us any money until you arrive here. You would have to pay the dorm if you want to live in the residence hall, which we have on campus, which is very nice. But what would happen is you will have to show us, though, this is by US law, that you have enough money to study for the first year. 12 months of living costs plus tuition and fees. So to live in Chicago is expensive a little bit. It's a little bit about $21,000 a year. It can be a little bit higher. And the tuition for the year, tuition and fees, for the undergraduate is going to be about $22,000. So your parents or your sponsors together will have to show about $44,000. And that's a requirement of the US government in order to get a visa. So you have to show us that, but you don't have to give us that. And then when you arrive, about 2 weeks after you arrive, you're going to get a bill for the first semester for your tuition and fees. You can pay it by the end of that semester. You can set up a payment plan. So it's kind of pay as you go. Then your living situation, if you live, say, with a relative or a family friend, they can write a letter, notarize it, official letter, very official letter, telling us we're going to cover the cost of the room and board. So then that $21,000 for the living costs can be absorbed by the family you're staying with. So those are some of the realities of how we do it. And I'm always happy to talk with students about that process. But it's really straightforward. It's like if you've met the minimum grade point average in your high school, you send us those official transcripts, we're good. And for IB students who've gone through the International Baccalaureate curriculum, we do give college credit. So my son did IB, and he got almost his whole first year knocked off. So it can save you, if it's a 4-year degree and you do IB and you do well in IB, you can get your first year almost completely knocked off.
Yearly annual fee will be waived off. So that will be very good. And how about the A-level students? Like if they complete their A-levels and they have straight A stars, for example, or straight A's for that matter, would the same thing will happen? Like the 1 year will be knocked off?
Levels, if the A levels were done at the equivalent of a college, we could transfer some credits in. So it kind of depends on where the A levels were completed. There's something else students can do called CLEP exams. They can take exams in fields and get certain requirements waived off as well. So there's various ways to do this.
Your university in Northeastern Illinois. Is there any scholarship available for meritorious students, like student getting straight A stars or straight A's?
Yes. Okay. So it goes back to that public-private. A private university might cost you, say, $70,000 to attend, and they'll say, "I will give you $20,000 scholarship." Wow, $20,000 scholarship, but you're still paying $50,000, right? Our total cost will be, we said, $44,000. That's living and tuition and fees. But as a public university, we're partly paid for by the taxpayer. We don't have $20,000 scholarships. We have a couple, one or two, but not so many. But for any student who has a grade point average of 3.5, they'll get a $2,000 scholarship in their first year. And anybody who has a grade point average of a 3.0 would get $1,000 scholarships. These are merit scholarships. And if you're in a program, you go through the honors program or something like that, you can get further small honors scholarships. But it's not going to be full ride scholarships. I did say we have one Pakistani woman getting a full ride in the MBA program, but she's very special. But this does happen. It's not like it's outside the realm of possibility, but you have to really be top student. And at the master's level, again, we have some merit scholarships, maybe covers up one of your 3 classes that you'd have to take. We also have graduate assistantships. So students in fields like computer science or in some of the foundational science fields, they often can be tutors or they can work in a lab. And those graduate assistantships can be more substantial. They can cover anywhere from 1/3 to 100% of your tuition and fees.
Okay, that's really nice. I mean, you said that generally you look at 2.5 GPA, especially for admission. So how about the extracurricular activities? If student has a lot of extracurricular activities in their school life and college life, how will it matter for your admission? Or only the grades are important?
Only the grades are important. Now,
Okay.
if you do have extracurricular activities, it's not necessary for the application to get admitted. However, you will have opportunities to continue some of those. We don't have a sports program. We have beautiful sports facilities. For casual, like you want to have pickup basketball games or there's weight training, they do running, there's activities, but it's not for any kind of competitions or any kind of scholarships. But we have lots of clubs on campus. My son, as a physics major, was part of the stargazing club. So they went up to the top of the roof on clear nights and would, have gatherings up there and look at the stars. We have an e-games new club started up. We have a newspaper. We have lots and lots of things. So if you have those extra activities, you certainly can continue them while you're here. And in some cases, link them perhaps to a major or find a way like for example, you get a business degree, but you really want to go into medicine. Well, you can maybe link some of those kind of activities so that you can specialize a major and make it fit exactly with what you want to do.
What qualification or what program he was in? Yeah.
My son did computer science and physics, double major. And then he got his first job at Fermilab as a particle accelerator operator. So he's running their particle accelerator. And he's been there now for 4 years, 3.5 years. And he's been moving up through that. And Fermi is the leading physics lab in the United States. So, this is one of the things, like because of the 11-to-1 student to faculty ratio here, And because we pride undergraduate research, my son did 3 different research projects with 3 different professors, including he got taken up to Canada to go down into an old nickel mine to study dark matter. This is as an undergraduate student, not a graduate student, right? Because of those experiences, it's NEIU can launch your career, and it can also get you into a very good master's or PhD program if that's what you're aiming to do next. So it's that really personalized and talk to faculty, get them to know you. And, I'll sometimes see something cross my desk and I'll know a student and I'll just send them, hey, look, there's this job opening or there's this kind of thing. It's just faculty will do that for students, especially the students who've made an effort to connect with a faculty member. And Pakistani students are very good at that. So I expect your students will also be very good at that.
The son who studied from Northeastern Illinois. So what is your experience, So, so I just want to ask you that, tell us about your experience with Northeastern as a parent.
My son started at a very famous Research One university, one of the best in the country. And he was sitting as a freshman in lecture halls with 200 and 300 other students. The university had 40,000 students. And he was a little bit lost. He was very, very bright. And because of that, he maybe didn't study as hard as he should have in high school because he relied on just how quick and smart he was. And then he had his first year and he was just a number in a huge class and his study skills were not so great. So he wasn't doing particularly well. So I said to him, well, change universities, come here, just park yourself here for a semester or 2, sort yourself out, and then you can figure out what you want to do next. Well, the very first day he got to campus, one of the professors grabbed him by the arm and she said, come on, you're helping me to set up my computer lab. He was like, okay. Literally, she became like a second mother to my son. She would come to my office and say, here's what your son is doing now. He's going to do this. And I'm like, excuse me, I'm his mother. I haven't even heard this. But she was like that kind of way, just always, and his other faculty, the fact that he got to do these research projects, he got taken to state competition where he won a statewide competition. There's something called the Student Center for Science Engagement. It's a space where science students study, the faculty drop in. There's a director of that center. She's always writing grants so students can go and present their papers. He got to present at a student research conference on campus. So I watched my son come here. He was not in the best space, quite honestly. And he was kind of anxious and depressed. And I also sent him to the counseling department. We have fantastic counselors. And after 2 meetings, all of a sudden my son started to be a little bit peppy. And then these faculty started taking, an interest in him. And I watched my son just blossom like a flower. So as a parent, and it wasn't because everybody knew I was his mother. He has a different last name from me. So, and we kept it very quiet. We didn't tell the faculty. I mean, okay, this one woman knew, but most of the faculty did not know he was my son. And so he wasn't being treated specially because I worked at the university. He was being treated that way because students get treated that way at our university.
Okay, if I can just speak for a minute. Sir, we can't hear you.
Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Okay, sir, as moderator. Yes.
Dr. Toffolo, can you hear me? Okay. So I have a question that being educated, I mean, throughout your life, I mean, emphasize a lot on critical thinking, problem solving skills, analytical skills, communication skills. On broader scale, 21st century skills. Uh, I just want to know, in the next 10 years or 20 years, AI is going to overtake so many things. So as an educator, what do you want the today's students to do? What skills they should develop these days? I mean, especially now in the next 2 to 3 years, so that they can be, a perfect match or perfect, individual in 20 years time or 10 or 20 years time. So what is your view as an educationist?
So as I was saying, just before you answer the question, uh, as as a moderator, it is my sad privilege to inform you that we have about 7 minutes remaining for this. So if you want to increase the time by mutual consent, that's up to you. But I'm just doing my job here. Okay, so I'll just let Dr. Toffolo answer the question.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take this question and maybe one more question. Then I do have another meeting. Um, so two things. So our Center for Teaching and Learning is always looking at the latest trends, and then they bring them back to the faculty, and there's something called the Faculty Institute at the beginning of each year, where the faculty are taught new skills and new trends. So last 2 years, the faculty has very much been learning about AI, learning how to use AI, integrating it into the classroom, teaching students how to use it. So we do understand that this is an important new tool. And it's not so new. The AI has been around in various ways, but it's new in terms of how it's being used in the classroom. I will say two things. Some students they'll learn how to use the AI prompts, and then they'll say, here's my term paper. I handed it in, but they wrote it with AI. What do they know? They don't know anything. So yes, it's very tempting to use a tool, but don't let it take away your brain and your own learning. I would say, I will use an example of how I used AI recently. I was applying for a grant. My colleague and I, we spent days working on a part of the grant proposal, and it could only be 250 words. And we had written 500 words. So we spit our 500-word thing into the AI. We took two different programs, and they spit back our ideas in 250 words. Completely different approaches, both valid, both missing something. So it wasn't that AI wrote our paper for us. AI helped us to do a task, which was to cut our paper down to size. And in the process, we learned some things about it was like a new way of hearing ourselves. So don't use AI as a shortcut for your own learning. Do the hard work of reading and writing and knowing those skills and knowing the foundation of your field. Then you can build and use AI to do a few things more quickly. It is going to eat up many, many, many jobs. AI is going to take them away because the computer can do them faster. Maybe not better, but faster and cheaper for companies. So you're going to be wanting to look at jobs reports and those kinds of things. In computer science, there's going to be some parts of computer science which will be taken over completely by AI, but not other things, right? Designing a web page, for example. Yes, you can do images with AI and those kinds of things, but the concept of what a company wants to do to express itself, AI can't completely do that. Human beings are going to be needed. So as you think about the jobs of the future, think about AI as a very powerful tool. It can eat certain kinds of jobs, but other kinds of jobs it can't. So pay attention as you're thinking about that. But you're a high school student. You don't know all these things, but I'll tell you our faculty are paying attention to that as well and will help you learn AI and also try to guide you in what you should be doing with AI and the things you should not be doing with AI.
Any question for Doctor?
Yes, Doctor, you have another meeting, but if you could quickly, am I audible to you? Yeah. So if you can quickly tell us before you go, just tell us about the OTP program. What is OTP and the duration of the OTP? Will it be included in the F1 visa?
So, OPT, optional practical training, is a 1 year work experience, which is part of your F1 student visa. And the university, my office continues to track you while you're on that. So you have to report your job to us. You apply for OPT as you're getting ready to graduate. It allows you to work off campus full time for up to 40 hours a week. If you're in a STEM field, you can apply again and extend it for 2 more years. And again, you work full time off campus. So for STEM people, you can work for 3 years. After you graduate, you remain on your F1 visa. Now, some students ask me, well, I want to stay and work in the United States longer. At that point, it would be up to a company to apply for an H-1B work visa for you. And what happens is it costs the company some money and some time. So if they really like you and feel like nobody else can do the job as well as you, they will apply for an H-1B work visa for you. And then they put that application into a great big pot of the US government, and the government pulls out about a third of those H-1Bs and grants you the work visa. 2/3 don't get it. And it's kind of a random thing. I've seen, I'd say maybe 10 to 15 to 20% of our students do have their companies apply for an H-1B visa for them. I've even seen companies apply a second time and the student has gotten it. So it is possible, but it's beyond what happens with your F1 student visa. Now, while you're a student, before you graduate, you can work in 2 ways. You can work on campus up to 20 hours a week. That's allowed by US law. And usually you get minimum wage. So on our campus right now, you're going to be earning between $15 and $18 an hour. A McDonald's meal, a hamburger, drink, and French fries will cost you about $9 to $10. So you can kind of gauge what does $15 to $18 actually mean. In your last year, you can do something called CPT, Curricular Practical Training. Then you're allowed to work off campus, but only under CPT. You have to be enrolled in a class that requires an internship, and you can do it for a volunteer option or you can do it for pay, but you only do it in your last year. So up until then, your option is really to work on campus. But our office works with you. We do not charge you for OPT. We do not charge you for the OPT STEM extension. Some universities do. We don't. We want to launch you successfully into your career. So our office works very closely with you from the time you are applying, up through getting your visa, up through being airport pickup. We do airport pickup as well for free. And then we get you here, we orient you, we keep paying attention to you while you're here. We help you apply for OPT and we stay with you the whole way. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And I do hope some of the students watch this will contact me on WhatsApp. I'm always there, and I'm sure you can get the contacts from your school. So, took me out for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
So, Raj, if you can just give the final word at closing.
Okay, doctor. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, Nadeem Saab. Thank you very much.